Good morning. Just playing a bit of music to get us started. We'll be joining you soon.
Lecę jak Lola w kosmicznym meczu. Flow Leosia, melodia jak Kate Bush. Lecę jak w kosmicznym meczu Michael. Widzę cię, wciągnąłeś mnie w bajkę. To moje miasto, to moje boisko. Nie trzeba mi wiele, ale mam wszystko. Idę tu nocą, światła migoczą jak gwiazdy. Patrzy się na mnie chyba każdy. Każdy się gapi lub spodełba na mnie luka. To moje życie, a nie jakaś bania luka. Metronom w głowie jedno tempo w sobie stuka. Nagle wryta staje i na ciebie lukam.
All right. Welcome to AI Innovation and Ethics, the SoStack Club's chat. We are short one person today, you may have noticed. I'm Reggie Johnson from Fort Worth, Texas. And this is Wayne Dinner from, name your city again?
I'm from a place called Warm Point on Carlingford Lough, Reggie, in the sunny east of Ireland.
I love hearing you say that. Warm Point on Carlingford Lough.
It is. And as I look out my office window, we are in Northern Ireland currently. But if we look to my right, we can see right across to the fantastic Republic of Ireland, which is literally a short swim away.
That's cool. Okay. So, this is an international chat. We pride ourselves on our global perspective. We've got some fun topics today. Well, I don't know, fun is the word, maybe interesting, worth talking about. I tend to say this is stuff worth talking about. I think that's part of why Paul started this chat. But Paul today is in Cyprus. Is it Cyprus?
He is. He's in sunny Cyprus today. It's probably as warm as it is here. I don't know what the temperature's like with you, but we're in the high 30s.
Oh,
today.
wow. Oh,
really,
okay.
really warm. Yeah, we have a bit of a heat spell come in, and I'm sure it's similar where Paul is today. So he's put his feet up. He's sitting poolside while we take over the reins today, Reggie.
Well, you guys covered while I was on vacation. I got to cover while he's on vacation. That song we played is a song called Jordan by a Ukrainian artist named Leah. A beautiful song. We'll play some more of it on the way out. So our topics for today, we hope that you'll leave a comment in the chat or a question, and we'll try to keep an eye on that so that we can potentially answer it on the air. We love interaction and engagement. So if you've got something to add, we hope that you will put it in there and tell us what you think about what we're talking about. So our topics, first off, we're going to talk about a new trial. Google and Meta declared addictive officially by a jury and denied a new trial. And what does that have to do with Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act? We'll tell you. Also, Microsoft CEO says we can't let AI giants eat our economy. Microsoft CEO. Okay. Kids finding self-worth with AI. Oh, that sounds good. Is it dangerous? And also neurodivergence, is it an advantage in the AI future? More on that. And then facial recognition to stop asylum seekers from gaming the system. Is that true? We'll talk to Wayne about that. An AI law firm wins its first court case in the UK first. That sounds interesting with all of the trouble we've had with AI in the area of law. So anxious to hear about that. Also, entering intellectual property into AI chatbots. Don't. There, we could leave it at that. Just don't. We'll have more on that in a second. And then 5 codes to improve your prompts. These are little shortcuts. We hope to share some of that. We like to share the latest news, which often is bad, to be frank. There is some of the negative stuff. We like to share something positive. We like to share some helpful tips. And so hopefully we're doing that today. So let's dive right in. And the Google and Meta addictive designs confirmed. So a court case in Los Angeles actually declared that their design was addictive. And this is important because typically social media companies have protected themselves from accountability behind Section 230 of the Communications and Decency Act, which says that web hosts are not accountable for the content people put on websites stored on their servers. So the person that owns the web server is not responsible for the content somebody puts on that web server if they create a website that's got hate speech or adult content. So that's been an important precept, and that was in the 90s, right? Well, social media companies come along and they don't really just host comments that other people put or posts that other people put, they actively promote them. And they do it in an addictive way, but yet they've managed to skirt any accountability for the harm they cause, spreading disinformation, harmful content, hateful content. A lot of lives were cost because of social media during the pandemic, spreading information about false information about vaccines, this kind of thing, documented, proven. And yet they've been able to get away by saying, well, Section 230 says we're not responsible for the content posted on a platform. So in a unique court case, go ahead, Wayne.
And that's the loophole, Reggie, isn't it? They say, look, we're not the publisher, so therefore we're not liable. Hands off.
Well, and this is what makes it different than a website. They're actively promoting content. They're feeding content to people that didn't ask for that content. With a website, you type in the URL or you find it in Google or whatever it may be, and you go to that website. In this case, you're not asking for what the social media companies serve you. So a court case, they said, they instructed the jury, ignore the content. The content is irrelevant. Focus on the design of the platform. And they looked at the way that it fed content, the way that it brought up notifications. A woman who claimed she was addicted to social media at a very young age and still addicted now, and it's harmed her. She was given a $6 million verdict. The money's not really what's important here, because that's nothing for Google and Meta. That's nothing at all. I mean, they wouldn't pick that up in the street. They wouldn't waste the time to pick that up in the street, right? But the important thing is it goes down as a court case, jury-backed, that says their product is addictive by design, not just because the content is harmful. And they were denied a new trial. Now, they say that they wrongly went around Section 230. They feel like that should give them infinite lack of accountability. So this was by Reuters. Reuters reported this. Jody Godoy was the author. And anyway, California state judge denied their motion for a new trial and stated that the jury confirmed that they were addictive. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of design, looking at the design of the platforms, not the content, moves forward when it comes to holding them accountable for the harms that have been caused by the addictive nature of social, especially as they intentionally have addicted young people.
And there's a lot of talk about safety by design specifically. When you hear of, different countries around the world, Australia, for example, the big focus with them is, and other countries, to be fair, is safety by design. I mean, you hear that word. And the thing that sort of baffles me sometimes, Reggie, is that's not a new concept. I mean, that's been around for years and years and years and years. And these platforms know that they should be designing with safety in mind, but they don't.
And their internal documents show that they know their product is addictive and addicting young people. It's intentional. All the evidence is out there. It's not up for debate whether or not they knew it was addicting young people, but they've managed to hide behind Section 230. And this is something they've tried to prevent happening for 20 years with billions of dollars in lobbying, because the only people that they seem to really need to convince to keep from holding them accountable are the politicians. And if they have them on their side, they've been able to be shielded from this. This is just a fact. I mean, 1 in 4 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. works for tech, works for AI or social media, one of those areas. And so I think that's worth repeating to understand the political climate of influence. So, all right.
And also what I would like to know is, that from the United States perspective about the 1 in 4 working for the tech companies, what's it like in other countries around the world? I'd love to know what it's like here in Europe. How many are actually involved, wrapped up, working with the tech companies and helping push through policy and lobbying?
Yeah, it's a good point. How many? It would be interesting to know. Well, another story, moving on to another one, in the Wall Street Journal. So the Microsoft CEO tells the Wall Street Journal, we can't let giants eat the economy. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about the fact that so many people are getting scared by these hyped up messages from AI companies saying, we're going to take all jobs. We're going to put data centers everywhere. We're going to use all the power. We're going to create super intelligent AI. And he's saying, hey, we can't tell people this stuff. It's going to scare them. Well, funny coming from the CEO of Microsoft, who kind of helped empower this whole movement with funding OpenAI's ChatGPT. And this is Tim El-Sheikh, LinkedIn, a tech influencer and an AI company starter himself. He's somebody who was actually in the same cohort as I believe Solomon it was, in the London Google campus. So he's a very knowledgeable person, and he writes about this because he does not believe in the same vision that the Broligarchs do. So he speaks out against them, despite being kind of from the same background, and he went a different direction. And so I have a lot of respect for him. He's somebody I follow closely because his commentary tends to be very cutting and very informed. So the Microsoft CEO is saying a vision that, like, we need an AI companion for everyone, was what he said for his Copilot, the Copilot from Microsoft. And he was one of the people that's kind of created some of this hype. But I think that now it's coming back on them, that people are getting scared off by this rhetoric. He's kind of maybe pulling back and saying, hey, we need to also some commenters have said he sees the AI bubble bursting, and now they're trying to soften their landing. So kind of walking back a little bit of what they've said themselves.
Yeah, and a bit like what we talked about last week, where Google ex-CEO Smith was saying, let's pull the plug. There's a lot of that talk about at the moment, and it seems to me almost that the tech companies have themselves by default or by mistake instilled fear now across the interwebs, where people are starting to sit up and take note and go, hold on a second here, are we going in the right direction with all of this?
Well, and I think they've been playing up these hyped up messages to impress investors, saying, invest in us. We're so super powerful. Invest in us now, or you're going to miss your chance, because we're either going to destroy the world or replace all jobs. But the same people, they're saying this, but the regular everyday people are listening to this too. So while they're trying to impress investors, they're scaring everybody else. So now they have this backlash against AI, and they're like, wait, we were only trying to impress investors. We didn't mean for you guys to get scared. We want you to use our products. But people are rightly concerned about their lack of responsibility. So I'd say in some ways it's kind of like serves them right.
And anybody who hasn't listened into our recent interview with the fantastic Jerry McGovern, I have just received delivery in the past couple of days of Jerry's book, The 99th Day, and I'm on the first chapter, and it is fascinating. So if you're listening in today, you haven't seen that interview yet, check out that interview that we did with Jerry McGovern. Fantastic insights to where AI potentially could go.
I believe that was in May, the first half of May, perhaps. I don't remember the exact date, but yes, that was a great interview. I need to get my book ordered. I don't remember if I placed my order yet. All right. So, and one thing, just a note on that idea, is that I think what Tem El-Sheikh says is we can't let these broligarchs rewrite history to claim that they were on the right side of things by saying, hey, we got to be sensitive, and we can't forget what they've done in the past, what they've said in the past. These are the same people that promised super intelligence and that scared the people. And now if they're walking that back, the historical record needs to stay accurate and show what they've done to get us here.
Exactly.
So kids finding self-worth in AI. Well, that sounds good, but is it dangerous, Wayne?
Yeah, Reggie, this is something we've touched on in the show several times about children gravitating towards AI chatbots. And there's a number of these chatbots now available through popular social media apps and platforms, and indeed games that children and young people are using. The AI chatbot can feel relational, like you have a relationship with it. It's warm, it's always available. It's also validating as well without taking any responsibility. And that's something that's really, really concerned. Also, the AI as almost like and in the article that I read, they've used the term AI as a funhouse mirror. When you go into the fun house and you go up to the mirror and it gives you some sort of reflection, which maybe is a little bit different or maybe not, a true reflection of who you are. It's that AI now, aspect of comparison and insecurity. AI often confirms some fears and insecurities in people as well. It kind of brings that, it bubbles that to the top. And it's really, the article is really focusing on the importance of good human being relationships, which is so, so important. The real solution effectively being reconnecting children and young people to real human relationships, which is so, so important. And we know as human beings, we're relationship centered beings, and we have to have relationships, real relationships with other people. So again, the worries and the concerns around the AI aspect and the comparison and what the AI is telling you, how it's validating maybe, a lot of stuff that you're wanting it to validate you, as opposed to being maybe a little bit more objective, and that human being there as well. And really looking at how children are developing sometimes unhealthy relationships with chatbots.
Well, tell me something. If could they make chatbots, AI companions, whatever it may be, in a way that helped, say, coach children on relationships with actual humans in a more healthy way? I mean, could they, or would that still be taking away from relationships with humans?
Yeah, I think the lines are very blurry in all of this. And I think that's what's really, really important. As we see, and you mentioned it a couple of moments ago in relation to what you were talking about Copilot and companion apps and that type of stuff, we're going to see more and more of this stuff deployed across all aspects of our life. But it's really important that we keep in mind that we don't want to be using that technology to replace real relationships with a coach, a parent, a trusted adult. We really want, because the AI is not going to be able to pick up on the nuances a lot of the times. And again, it's something that I talk about with children and young people in schools. If you're worried about something that's happened online, go and speak to a trusted adult. And children and young people need good, trusted adults in their lives that can help them get to the bottom of the concern, the issue, or the problem, but also how to navigate that effectively. And you're not going to get that with the response. No matter how good the AI is, the human is always better.
Well, and that's true even if the AI was run by somebody benevolent who had your best interest at heart. Instead, we've got kind of the exact opposite. They're really not interested in your best interest. So they're never going to make an AI chatbot or companion that has your best interest at heart. It's always going to be one where they're trying to keep you engaged, addictive, same as social media companies have done. So yeah, that's that. So you say it's not going to replace the human, and that's even in the best case scenario, and we don't have the best case scenario.
We don't.
So talking about neurodivergence as an AI advantage, or as an advantage in the AI future, this was interesting because Palantir CEO Alex Karp said, based on some research from Gartner as well, but he says there are basically two ways to know you have a future. This is kind of extreme the way he says this. He says, one, you have some vocational training. That's like being a plumber, electrician, hands-on physical work that can't be replaced by AI. And number two is you're neurodivergent. Wow. You're either neurodivergent or you're a plumber or you're an electrician. I mean, that's an interesting take. Now, obviously, we're used to the tech bros saying some extreme things. What he's referencing is a Gartner study that showed that I think 20% of Fortune 500 sales-oriented companies are looking to increase their hiring of neurodivergent. Now, neurodivergent is just a broad term that means encompasses ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and other conditions. Some people call them invisible disabilities. I think there's a growing movement towards understanding neurodivergence not as much as a disability, but as the variety of human experience, as a legitimate perspective that's just different than what we consider the norm, if there is such a thing as the norm. And that society has been structured in a way that's unfriendly towards neurodivergence historically. And now a lot of people are saying the AI world is creating some advantage for neurodivergence, which is a good thing to balance things out. But it's still a little mixed because I saw one writer on LinkedIn talk about the fact that this whole idea of the outlier genius, the brilliant outlier, is a little bit harmful as well, because while it makes room for people that would have been fine anyway, that can survive in this world that's not structured for neurodivergence, it doesn't help the people with neurodivergence who weren't in that category of brilliant outlier or whatever you want to call there's this stereotype of Rain Man. You remember the movie Rain Man? He was a math genius, but he was autistic, and but that kind of a view of like, if you're neurodivergent, you must be a genius. And I think that kind of expectation could be harmful, while at the same time, if they're seeing the value that different types of thinking bring, that's a positive. But by furthering this stereotype that unless you're an outlier genius, then you're still excluded, it can be harmful. So it's an interesting development in the zeitgeist, kind of I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Wayne?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and it's one that certainly you really need to sort of dig into and think a little bit more about, especially when you're looking at categorization and that type of stuff. It's either one or the other, but it's actually not.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a spectrum. I mean, everything's a spectrum,
yeah,
right? But
yeah,
especially in this case, we had one of our listeners, Robin, said neurodivergence has always been an advantage, but the education sausage machine for 200 plus years didn't like it. Now we need it. We have actually found a correlation between neurodivergence and what we call game changers, with the leading and only global. Well, some of the people, like some of the famous innovators, have been neurodivergent, and I think we're seeing a association with that because of the unwillingness to just accept the standard answer, and some of those things. But the thing is, every neurodivergent person is different. There's not one monolithic way, and so this is where the stereotype can be harmful, because then people assume you have to be this if you're neurodivergent, and you must be this, and if you're not that, then you're still excluded. So
and it's back to our comparison apps earlier on. It's back to our companion apps as well. You must fit into this sort of category, and if the machine is telling you that, then that can have all sorts of implications and complications. And exactly back to what one of the contributors or commenters said there about they're not the publisher. This is back to what we were talking about earlier on in relation to the social media apps and platforms. Any singer knows how to turn away from that. They're the amplifier. And that's a good sort of way to think about it. The social media platforms are effectively amplifiers in themselves. But how do we deal with when they're amplifying misinformation and disinformation and all sorts of rubbish and stuff that, is influencing all aspects of our society? Definitely more talking about that is essential.
yeah, definitely up for rethinking things, but not just jumping to a new oversimplified model of conceptualizing things. I think that's the danger. When you have a pendulum rather than a more robust system for change, a pendulum can be very flaky.
Yeah.
So, and if we're seeing a pendulum, we need to make sure we reinforce it with the right way. But we'll see what happens with that. It's interesting to see. Hopefully, there's more opportunities for people that are neurodivergent as it starts to be understood as something valuable as part of human diversity, and not just some deficiency, which it is not. Wayne, tell us about facial recognition being used to stop asylum seekers from gaming the system potentially.
Well, across the world, immigration is a hot topic. I don't think it matters whether it's in the United States or here in the UK and Ireland or across Europe or even right out in Australia. Immigration is the topic at the moment, which people are talking about. People coming to countries for various reasons, whatever that might be. And this particular one is looking at the UK government rolling out an artificial intelligence facial recognition tool at its borders. Now, this isn't starting to 2027, but it's designed, Reggie, to estimate a person's age from photographs in order to catch out adult asylum seekers who falsely claim to be children. Now, this has been a problem in the UK where you have people coming to the country who are claiming to be, because they don't have any documentation, it's very difficult to prove what age they may be saying they are. Now, I won't pass for a 13-year-old, as you can clearly see, but there will be people out there who are maybe in their late teens, maybe in their early 20s, that do look relatively young, that could pass for, when you're looking at the person's face, you might assume, well, they're only a teenager, but in fact, they're maybe 19, they're 20, or they're whatever age they are. So this driver in particular is that unaccompanied child migrants are processed through the care system rather than the asylum system. So this is what they're going to be looking at rolling out. A couple of things to keep in mind about this, and we've talked about this on the show before: the accuracy of the age verification system. How accurate is this system? Is it able to get it right? What are the variables within that, especially when you're looking at cross ethnicity, different nationalities? Is it going to be effective? What are the consequences, Reggie, around false positives? Again, the AI can get things wrong. What is the recourse then if it has got it wrong? What kind of things do we need to think about? What is the independent oversight and governance of this technology? It doesn't mention, what the dispute route is, again, going back if it gets it wrong, what transparency is going in place to check it. And then there's the whole political framing around this sort of stuff. So it's going to be a very interesting one to watch at the moment. I don't know if other countries are doing this currently, if it's something that happens elsewhere, but this is something that's going to be rolled out to borders across the UK in 2027. And we will certainly watch it to see the implications of that.
Excellent. Great points. I've got nothing to add. I mean, that's like you said, what's going to be the oversight? Can it get it right? Especially with bias training data, which is shown to sometimes not be fair to people of non-white ethnicities. And so, yeah, it's got important implications.
And maybe even looking at the training data that it's been trained on, that's going to be important to think about as well. Because as we know, the data that some of these AI models are trained on contains biases and inaccuracies and all sorts of stuff that people need to think about. And somebody just posted a comment, thank you. This is such an important show for the entire planet. So it's great to hear people are enjoying what we're talking about today.
We definitely try to have that global perspective, and because this affects everybody, and what happens in America, what happens in England affects people everywhere. So we appreciate that. So on a positive note for AI, an AI law firm wins its first court case in the UK. Did an AI win a court case? Oh, you're on mute.
This is another really interesting one, Reggie, at the moment that we love positives on this show as well. We talk a lot about the negatives and we're always kind of talking doom and gloom, but it's nice to see some of the positives. And this is an example here in the UK. Garfield, not to be confused with Garfield the cat, I'm sure, but Garfield AI is the UK's first AI-powered law firm. Authorized, and this is really important, they are authorized by the Solicitors Regulation Authority since 2025. They have helped a client win a court trial. And this is reportedly the first time that this has happened anywhere in the world. It's kind of big news story. The case was all about a freelance HR consultant who sued a hospitality business for unpaid fees after the business failed to pay for HR services, which the plaintiff provided. So how it worked, the platform, which is the one with Garfield.ai, drafted pre-action correspondence, filed county court proceedings, managed the disclosure, and prepared 4 witness statements and completed the trial bundles. The barrister reportedly said that the AI draft documents, I should add, were more than sufficient for the purposes of this trial. Now, that's from the barrister. That's not the AI saying this. That's a human being. We have to sort of keep it in context as well, which is really important, that there still is a human being here giving oversight, which is really, really important. So that barrister said that the AI drafted documents were more than sufficient for the purposes of this trial. This is interesting as well because the point's worth considering in this, that the human still won the case in court. And that's what's really important. Back to that barrister point a couple of moments ago as well. And the regulatory responsibility still remains human. So courts and regulators have stressed that the lawyers remain responsible for verifying the AI-assisted submissions, which is really, really important. So this win doesn't remove human accountability from the process. So it's a really good example of AI and humans working together, but we still have the human oversight checking what the AI is doing. And that's where the barrister came into place as well. So it's not that the AI handled the whole thing. Yes, the AI helped in the submission, preparation, and those types of things of the documents for the case, but the barrister still overseeing what the AI generated.
But what it did was it decreased the costs to the freelance HR worker so that she didn't have to pay, or he or she didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for their own lawyer. They were able to do it at a fraction of the price of what they were seeking to regain.
That's correct. So they paid 400 quid in fees, which is substantially lower than what you would have paid if you had have been going maybe down a more traditional route. And that helped her recover over 7,000. as opposed to having a barrister and a solicitor, which you would normally need in something like this. You would need a solicitor initially, and then the solicitor would instruct the barrister to represent you in court. It was able to substantially reduce the cost of what it cost.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if something like this can help provide greater access to justice, outcomes to more people who don't have the money. Because we talk about how those people that can afford expensive lawyers often get better treatment.
Yeah, and I think what's important for people to remember as well is this particular firm is sort of specializing in small claims, sort of debt recovery. This isn't complex legal litigation, which again is going to be more costly, going to require more human oversight, time, etc. And that's where you really get into really large, hefty legal bills. The more that you have to have specialized expertise, and what I mean by that is specialized human expertise as opposed to specialized AI. And again, it's a good example of the AI and the human oversight working kind of hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. That's interesting to see how that develops. I'll put one more thing in here. We'll just mention. We'll skip just entering IP into AI chatbots. Don't. Max Hofert and Sorabel Feliz had talked about this recently on LinkedIn. Just a reminder, they said a lot of startups, people are putting their trade secrets into the public AI chatbots, and they're surprised by this because they don't realize these companies are losing money, the AI companies, and they're desperate to get whatever they can. They're taking people's data, is what Max Hofert says. So they're if they're scraping every single thing you put into the chatbots, including personal information and protected business IP. And that's important to remember. They don't have your best interest at heart when you're using those public non-enterprise versions of them. And just real quick, 5 codes to improve prompts. This was from Carla Katarina on Instagram. I actually saw this in an Instagram reel. She shared 5 little things you can put before your prompt to boost its usefulness depending on the use case. And I'll just tell you these real quick. We'll include them in the notes as well. But one of them is /human. That makes it respond in a more natural way. You just put /human, then they say, tell me how I can represent myself in a court of law or whatever. It'll respond in a more human way. /EL10, that means explain like I'm 10. So /EL10 quantum mechanics. I tested this myself, and it said quantum mechanics explained to a 10-year-old, X10 think, that means think better, work harder, more complete answers. /listify, that automatically turns it into lists, no fluff. So you're like /listify key points of the Battle of Hastings, and just gives you listed bullet points. And then /alt3, which is generate 3 options. So you're like /alt3 headline ideas for my campaign about perfume, So those are just some quick things. /human, /EL10, /X10 think, /listify, /alt3. If you guys get a chance, try these out and tell us next week how you liked them, if they were helpful for certain use cases. It's all about trying to save you some time and not having to type out, explain this to me like I'm 10, but instead you just put /EL10 /human. So interested what your results are. We're going to play it out now with a little bit more music from Leah from the song called Jordan. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Hope that you have a great weekend, Wayne. And we thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you for the engagement. Best wishes to Paul and his vacation, and we hope to see him back next week. And we'll look forward to another week of chat. Here's Jordan by Leah.
Zatańczymy razem, nie stój dłużej sam. To życie jak z bajki Lola, Bunny, Bunny Bugs. Lecę jak Lola w kosmicznym meczu. Flow Leosia, melodia jak Kate Bush. Lecę jak w kosmicznym meczu Michael. Widzę cię, wciągnąłeś mnie w bajkę. Jak Jordan, jak Michael. W bajkę. Wciągnąłeś mnie. Moje ulubione słowo to dolarsowo. Tak się czuję, bawię się nim jak bawię się modą. Lubię jak jest słodko, ale bryzę słoną chłonąć. Lubię także